will be as predictable as possible. I don't know if the AI understands me. So trust is a major component of building any AI products. And generally, there are a big question that comes to mind is what is trust, right? And building trust is not really about being right all the time. Of course, you always want to optimize for providing the best output, but these systems are probabilistic, so you won't have the right answer all the time. But building trust is while building trust is not about being right all the time, it is about integrity, accepting mistakes, and actively correcting them. And if you think about these words, integrity, accepting mistakes, it's nothing but some sort of feedback, right? So how do you build trust? So according to me, there are two ways to build trust. One is explainability. Explainability essentially means you're telling your users or explaining to your users how your AI system works, how well it works, how when it does not work. You're sort of setting the right set of expectations. And the second thing is control. So where your AI systems are going to be wrong, but you're providing some level of control on the outputs of your system can also help build trust. And I'll show you some examples of what that means. So the first example is of Spotify. So on Spotify, when you create a playlist, right, based on the playlist, it will also recommend additional songs to add to your playlist. Now, the way these songs are recommended is through some sort of a model, right? And you don't really need to go into the depth of the model, but the only thing you really need to understand or explain to the user is that these are the songs that are being recommended because you have put certain other songs. This is enough amount of explanation. It gives you a sense of the mental model of how this AI system works. Second way is uh, what I call as aggregation. So, for example, on Amazon, when you look at a specific product, like say I'm building a gaming PC, and for the gaming PC, I have a motherboard that I have decided. Right? It would recommend me other things that people who have bought this specific product also buy. So this model also explains to me how these results were generated through a simple sentence. I'm going to use a lot of Spotify examples, because I think they do a lot of these things well. Uh, on Spotify, you also are able to. Spotify also generates custom playlists for you, right? And a lot of the times, the title of the playlist itself is the explanation of the model. For example, on repeat, you know what it means. You are listening to these songs on repeat. Summer rewind, you probably have a sense of what these things mean. All these are also explanations. Explanations are not always wordy text. On most news feed like applications or any sort of library like applications, you will see some ways to dismiss outputs essentially. So on Google News, you would sort of see a way to sort of hide a specific story, uh, say like or dislike, save the story, etc. You are essentially not doing nothing but providing control to your user. It is generally hard to provide explainability in GenAI. So what you will see is in a lot of GenAI applications, they index a lot more on control. So you get a lot more control because the people who are designing these models themselves do not know how the outputs were generated. Sometimes you can force some of these models to sort of provide references, etc. But a lot of times these references also hallucinate. So if you use these tools enough, you probably know like even if you get a reference, sometimes it is a broken link, sometimes it is not really a URL at all, etc. So the general way in which these systems sort of build trust with users is through providing a lot more control on its outputs. Your AI will make mistakes. So this is a given. All AI systems are probabilistics, and because it is a probability-based system, you are going to make mistakes, and your system is going to be wrong sometimes. This is a general mental model of how almost all AI systems work. You get some sort of an input, it goes through an AI model, and it generates an output. Essentially, learning in AI will happen by like going through this loop. Right? For example, your input could be a prompt, and the output could be an image. Your input could be an image, the output could be a description of the image. Your input could be a song, the output could be a music video of the song. Basically, like most AI systems are some sort of input output mappings. Uh, Even if you take like popular AI systems like LLMs, they also are a very sped up input output mechanism. Your LLM is essentially taking the input of your prompt plus the previous word and a bunch of other parameters to generate an output. And because these systems will be wrong, you want to understand when they are wrong and try to improve the model all the time. And this is what is known as feedback. Feedback is a very big component of most AI systems. And having a general sense of feedback in your design process is going to help you design much better AI products. In general, there are three types of feedback in most AI systems: explicit, implicit, and dual. And you will use all of these whenever you design AI products. Explicit is what we have all seen, like, dislike, star ratings, input boxes, tags, etc. These are very common. You have already seen it. Explicit feedback is extremely prevalent in most AI systems. I don't think you'll find any AI system that does not have some sort of an explicit feedback mechanism. Second is implicit. Implicit is essentially what you decipher from user behavior. Essentially, it could be eye tracking, it could be things like your funnel diagrams, it could also be like reviews of your app or your product on like the App Store or like different social media platforms. And the idea is to sort of extract a lot of this feedback to sort of build a better product. So in the diagram that we saw, that is the feedback that we're talking about. Right? Most AI systems will have this, and in this case, you can see a combination of both explicit and implicit feedback. We call it dual feedback. Explicit is things like liking a song, disliking a song, skipping it. Is explicit. I know from this user behavior that this song is not being liked or being skipped. Uh, Implicit is a little bit trickier and harder, but this is where you need to work with your tech teams to sort of ML and tech teams to sort of figure out what is the best way to collect this sort of feedback. In this case, like the duration of the song, if there are certain parts of the song that I like, can I generate a pattern out of it? And can I generate a playlist in this case, or can I generate more recommendations for you based on like parts of the song you often listen to? Sometimes we tend to skip certain parts of songs towards the end, especially when they're like uh, some songs will like sort of have like a very slow end, and people tend to sort of skip them. So these could be like different kind of settings. But the idea being that there is a combination of implicit and explicit feedback that you will use. Right? These are some examples of feedback in modern LLM applications. Uh, but one thing to remember is your user's not job is not to give you feedback. Okay? They are there to get something done, and giving feedback should be optional. You should not intrude the user's core workflow. For example, if a surgeon is conducting surgery, asking for feedback while the surgery is ongoing is not a good idea. Right? Another thing you want to really think deeply about is why will somebody give you feedback? You need to consider the incentives for someone giving you feedback. I talk about this at length in my book. This session is too short for this topic, but think about like why will somebody attempt to give you feedback? Sometimes it is about frustration. Sometimes people are just nice, but there are other mechanisms that you can use to get feedback. All right. So the next topic, next idea I want to talk to you about is that no one wants to use your product. What they really want to do is they want to get something done. Right? You don't really want to use a clock app. You want to wake up on time. You don't want to use PowerPoint. You want to communicate your idea. Right? Your users don't really care about your AI interface, your AI agentic framework, any of the complex, fancy things that you do. They only care if it solves their problem. Right? Take this idea to heart. Ask always, why will somebody use your product? Why are they here? And is AI the best way to solve it? The third idea I want to talk to you about is that you don't really want to chat with your AI. What you want to do is communicate with it. Right? So, what comes to mind when you think of an AI interface? Uh, Folks, can you add your comments in the chat? And Kishore, can you just read out?
Sure, Akshay. Yeah, I mean, like predominantly, like what comes to my mind is like, of course, ChatGPT, Gemini, Perplexity. Jarvis, there is an answer from Dylan. Jarvis. Text box
Nice.
or microphone is another answer. Conversational chats, chat interface, most probably a chatbot, a text-based UI.
Awesome.
Yeah, place to dump my thoughts in a text box, but now solving slow loving Gemini Live. Sorry. Stitch AI is the best one for interface design, agentic AI. So these are all some of the answers we got in chat.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. So yeah, it is quite predictable. If you remember phones, right? All phones eventually became voids. Now we have voids that fold, but they still are voids essentially. So all phones over time sort of converged into becoming some sort of voids. I see something similar happening with AI interfaces, but I think we can do better. Right? There are lots of ways in which AI can be applied, and these are just some of the non-chat based AI interfaces. For example, talking to an assistant is an AI based interface. A Spotify or like a YouTube suggesting you things in a list, generating playlists for you automatically, or generating like custom video playlist for you on YouTube is also an AI interface. If you think about it, it's not based on chat at all. Uh, when you're typing something, Smart Compose will add the next best words to use. That's also an AI interface. We saw some of the Amazon examples earlier, where you are looking at specific items and it suggests you other kinds of items. You can also rank things interestingly using AI. For example, if I want to book a flight, and you must have heard of lots of agentic AI interfaces going through the whole flight booking process end to end, or like a travel booking process end to end. Those are, uh, I don't think people will be comfortable too much in giving agency to for making the payment itself as yet. Right? But AI can do a great job of ranking flights or ranking things from a series of discrete uh, items into a list, and it can tell you that, hey, this flight is being recommended because you prefer this specific airline at these times in the day. You won't get jet lag. It understands your sleep patterns. You could do a lot of interesting things by just deeply applying AI to like existing interfaces itself. You have Circle to Search, which is uh, a new one which I discovered a year ago, which is pretty interesting. I think it will become a common pattern over time. You have vision-based AI. You also have an ability to cluster, classify things automatically. Your smart Meta Ray-Ban smart glasses have a way to interact with the AI. It is largely by voice, but I think we'll get to a world where you'll have some level of visuals plus voice in a lot of these interfaces. So whenever you next time think about AI interfaces, I want you to also consider things beyond chatbots. Otherwise, we'll turn into like the iPhone where everything looks the same and much there's not much diversity. Here I'm gonna let me show you an example from our own work at Suki. This is a news clip.
New artificial intelligence tool you could see at your next checkup.
This is an AI system that's going to be listening to us, and it's going to be scribing the notes.
Right on his phone, Dr. Robin Baradarian is running a high-tech tool called Suki AI.
Any family history of any problems.
While he talks with patient Michelle Barone in an exam,
I feel burning up. Sometimes I even feel it in my ears.
Suki takes notes, letting the doctor focus on her.
I remember going to doctors, their back was turned as they were trying to write notes down, looking at the computer. It's not personable.
It helps you concentrate on the important aspects of being a doctor.
Suki does more than
So we'll not go into all the features of Suki, but the idea being like, as you saw, the doctor did not really interact with the AI at all. AI was listening ambitly and was doing the boring stuff of what most doctors don't like to do, is doing documentation itself. So a doctor could essentially hand off a very tedious, boring job to the AI and sort of focus on what they have been trained to do. A lot of the doctors in the US especially end up like sort of uh, not paying too much attention or like not facing the patient as much. And the patients are also unhappy because I've come here and the doctor is not looking at me. They're on their desktop or their phone and typing away things. This brings a lot more human connection in the room. The doctor is able to actively interact with the patient and they enjoy their profession a lot more. The patient is also happy because now my doctor is talking to me. If you look at remote controls like maybe 10, 15 years back, and some of you might be too young for that, they look something like this. You had to click on a bunch of buttons. You had to, if you wanted to watch a specific show at a specific time, there was no like saving of memory of on your TVs where it remembered what was the last channel you watched. Uh, if you know the channel number, you have to type in the channel number. Or if you did not know, God forbid, you would have to go through a list of channels. And eventually they introduced things like menus, but a typical remote control sort of looked like this. Now, when it came to my mom, what she really wanted to do was just put on her serial, really. Like she didn't really care about all the features that this TV had. She just wanted this TV to, she just wanted to watch her serial at a specific volume at a specific time. Um, if you think about it, almost all your users will prefer the most natural way to interact. And in this case, like using a bunch of buttons, chatting with your chatbot sometimes is not as natural if you think about it. Right? What my mom really wanted to do was say, "Hey, can you put on my show?" And she sort of used me as the interface to get it done. But when you think about designing your AI products, think about what is the most natural way to interact with the product. It sometimes might not be a chatbot at all. Again, I have nothing against chatbots, but it might not be the best interface in all cases. I want to introduce a book to you guys. It is called Enchanted Objects. It is an old book, I think around 10 years old. The idea of this book is that intelligence can be seamlessly blended into everyday life. If any of you watch science fiction, play games that involve science fiction or fantasy, or you read science fiction and fantasy, if you notice a pattern of the technology that is often shown in a lot of these stories, is not really a black glass or a void that's in your hand. It is often like something interesting, like a talisman. It is sometimes a flying carpet, etc. So this book essentially talks about how we don't really need to design every time for these black voids, but you can also design objects which are enchanted or almost magical. Right? And here are the few examples of what these enchanted objects could be. So, for example, and some of these examples are real, and some of these are from science fiction and fantasy. For example, Harry Potter's Marauders map sort of is essentially a GPS location of every person in the school. The communicator in Star Trek is an interesting device. Basically, it exists as a badge and it does interesting things, and you can interact with it and get a lot of things done. So that's interesting. Again, in Star Trek, you won't see a lot of phones per se. You'll see like watches that become phones, stuff like that. Palantir from Lord of the Rings is an interesting one. Babelfish from Hitchhiker's Guide, if you've read it. It is essentially a translator, but it's a much more nuanced translator of language. Then let me talk about a few real products. For example, like the one that you see on the bottom right is a product called Ambient Orb. It's basically a programmable orb that you can connect lots of any kind of data feed to. And people use it for very interesting things like weather check. For example, like it ambiently tells you what the weather is outside without you know. It also, you can connect it to specific stocks that you're tracking or the market in general. So often a lot of these technologies first end up being used in finance, and it's unfortunate, I know, but end up being used in finance, and they sort of use it as a device to ambiently track the performance of a specific stock I'm looking at. So it would become red, green, blue, purple, whatever I assigned it to. But again, like there's no text output. I can ambiently understand what's going on and whether I need to act on something or not. The the metallic device you see in the center here is a recorder. It's made by this company called Teenage Engineering. Your nothing phones are also built by the same company. It's a very interesting device. It is extremely high tech. It's a voice recorder, but with a lot of tactile elements to it, and it also has AI in it. So it records your voice, and you can also it also summarizes your recordings and can do a lot of interesting things with it. So that's also a type of an enchanted object. Right? It has tactility. It feels nice to use. It is also usable at the same time and also intelligent. IKEA has this product. I have a lot of them in my house. It monitors AQI. It's a very cheap product, and it just tells you whether the air in your house is fine or not. Basically, it goes from green to red. Essentially, if it is yellow, orange, or red, you want to do something about it. You want to switch on the fan, switch on the air purifier, open your windows, whatever it makes you sort of improve the quality of your air. But it does it ambiently. So it's sitting in the background. I mostly don't pay attention to it unless it calls for my attention.
This is an elephant ball.
Another product is called, some of you who may be musicians may have seen this product. It's called the Roly Seaboard. It's a riff on the keyboard essentially, but it has a lot of interesting interface elements. It is essentially a MIDI keyboard, essentially an electronic keyboard, and apart from pressing on the keys, you can also like swipe on these keys. You can press softly or hardly, and based on what you do, like interesting sounds are produced. So it opens up like almost infinite possibilities. The one in the center is a mirror. It's called the Magic Mirror. It's an open source project. So if some of you are interested in building it yourself, you should try it. It allows you to convert a mirror into a magic mirror with some sort of an interface with LLMs. You can probably.
I come from your neighboring state. Neither of us chosen to born at a particular place.
Intelligent
Radhakrishnan ji
mirror. I've built a few mirrors myself. I enjoy building them. It has a combination of both interface design, a little bit of hardware, product design, a lot of things. So next time, whenever you think of building products, think of enchanted objects as one framework for you. Their products need not be chatbots that have started becoming boring. They can be a lot more interesting, right? If you don't take away anything from my talk, this is the one thing I want you to take away. Your users, you want your users to interact with your AI with the most natural mechanism possible. Like sometimes, and the most natural mechanism might be chatting, it might be pointing, it might be pressing, holding, looking, interjecting, looking and pointing, clicking, saying paraverbals like aha, using tone of voice, sniffing could be interesting. So think beyond your GUI. Your mood and tone of voice can also be inputs and elements of your interface. So, but sometimes it is, and think of the most easy way. So sometimes it is easier to tap on a button. Sometimes you want to chat. Sometimes it is better to speak. Sometimes it is better to point your finger. For example, if I had to show you a thing in this room, it is much easier for me to show my camera and point you to it than like describing what it is. So the best interface is often the easiest interface. Sometimes you will want to really interact with the AI. Sometimes you want the AI itself to respond to you. So you looked at a lot of the examples in the enchanted objects images that I showed earlier. A lot of the times you don't really have to even interact with the AI. It just works on your behalf ambiently. So with that, let me summarize. So we talked about 3 ideas. The first idea was that only 2 things matter: trust and feedback. The second idea was nobody really wants to use your product. They want to get something done. So you don't want to use the clock app or click a bunch of buttons. You want to wake up on time. And you can also expand that idea, right? You can say, I want to wake up on time refreshed. It changes the entire notion of what you're trying to build. The third is you don't really want to chat with your AI. Sometimes you may want to, but what you really want to do is communicate with it. Communication is also two ways. It is also sometimes the AI interacting with you. It is also you interacting with the AI. And how you interact with the AI can have different ways. You can chat with it, you can speak with it, point fingers, etc. So with that, that's my time. Thank you. And reach out to me on LinkedIn if you have more questions. I'm always happy to chat about this. I love teaching. I love learning from all of you. And I look forward to what you all build.
Thank you so much, Akshay. Before we jump to the Q&A, we have some questions in the chat. But before jumping there, folks, your feedback matters a lot to us. So please scan the QR code or use the link in the chat. Monish, can you share?